to order. All right, the record reflects we are back in session. Part of the council are present. Members of our jury are present. Defense complainant.
Ryan LaRock.
Brian Charles LaRock, B-R-Y-A-N. Charles is C-H-A-R-L-E-S. LaRock is L-A space R-O-C-K.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. LaRock.
Good afternoon.
What is your current occupation?
I am a computer forensic analyst.
How long have you been a computer forensic analyst?
A little over 10 years.
And do you have any specialized training and education in this field?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
I received my first in 2004, my bachelor's degree in computer science from USC. I then went on, received my master's degree from the same school, USC, in 2005. And I then became certified. It's a certification called the Certified Computer Examiner, CCE. That's issued to me by a board called the ISFCE, another abbreviation, International Society of Forensic Computer Examiners.
And does that certification require ongoing training?
Yes, it does.
Can you describe that?
Sure. So the initial process is a course of study. Involves reading and practical application, testing both written and practical exams, and then ongoing every 2 years to maintain my certification. I have to undergo continuing education credits, which means I have to go to conferences, additional training to keep abreast of what's current in the field.
Do you have any specialized training in the field of computer forensic science or computer science? Any specialized training in a particular area?
Are you referring to my college years?
Sure.
Okay. As part of computer science, I had a specialization at the time of, I actually forget exactly what they call it at the time because it's been a while, but multimedia applications.
Now, is it fair to say that technology is constantly evolving and changing?
Absolutely.
And what is it in your current training, that do you adapt to those changes in technology as time goes on?
Sure. The biggest piece there is the continuing education that I do every 2 years. I generally attend at least 3 conferences every single year related to the fields of computer forensics, electronic discovery, which is a related field that I also do work in, and computer security. So I attend sessions at these conferences, learn sort of about the new things that people are doing with their computers, what that means in terms of analyzing computers to see what we can find out now as opposed to what, when I originally started doing computer forensics.
What exactly does a computer forensic analyst do in general?
So to distill it down to a sentence, I am analyzing electronic evidence, so that will mean computers, devices such as thumb drives, hard drives, mobile phones, any sort of electronic device, looking at the history, what has happened with them. I'd say that's a pretty decent sentence on it.
And have you qualified as an expert in this field?
Yes, I have.
How so? How many times?
I've testified about, I would say probably 10 or 11 times in federal court, state court, arbitrations, depositions, both civil and criminal court.
How many cases have you worked on in your, I guess, 10 to 11 year history?
I'd say more than 300 cases. At one point early on, I was keeping close track. I think I stopped counting a few years ago when I was over 225 or so. So I would say definitely more than 300 by this point.
And were you or your firm contacted by us in regards to this case?
My company was contacted by your office, yes.
And how long ago was that?
That was the end of 2015.
And were you then brought on to do certain tasks in this case?
My company was brought on. My company is called Illuma Discovery. We were brought on to work on this case. We were appointed by the court.
And what did you understand, or what did your company understand the task was at hand?
Objection, relevance.
What were you hired to do, or your company hired to do?
We were asked to perform a computer or electronic evidence analysis of many pieces of evidence involved in this case, primarily to ascertain the facts surrounding the disappearance and then what turned into be the murder of the McStay family, to try to identify historical actions, to try to identify relationships that the McStays had with other people, to identify basically what was going on in their lives at the time of their disappearance, basically to try to add some context as to what happened.
And were you given certain devices to look through on a computer forensic basis?
We were given copies of evidence. So it's called, the term is forensic images. So in other words, we were given, as opposed to the original devices, what happened was law enforcement had all of the original devices. They made complete copies, 100% copies of the data contained in these devices, and my firm received copies of these forensic images.
And you would then, the way that works is you provide, let's say, blank hard drives, and then they're turned over to the prosecution. They make the copies, and then they're given to you as representative of exact copies of those devices.
That's right.
How many such devices did you receive forensic images of?
I actually don't have the exact count in front of me right now, but I believe it was around 30 devices.
And did you, what would be, let's say, on some of the devices, it's fair to say that were computers, and some were mobile phones and thumb drives and things of that nature, all different types of devices?
That's right.
Okay. And let's take, for example, the computers you received. How many forensic images of computers did you receive?
Give me just a moment. I'm considering which of the devices were computers. It's probably about 8 or 9 computers, I would say.
Did some stand out more than others in degree of importance?
In the degree of, I would say some stood out to me more than others in terms of the relevance of the task of trying to ascertain what was going on with this family, what happened to this family at the time of their disappearance. So the reason that I say that is one of the first tasks that we did was to look at the date ranges of these devices. There were some devices that were right around this January, February 2010. There were many devices where the date range was nowhere near that.
Either way before or way after?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So when you get a device, what is it that you actually do? Is there, without being too technical, is there an outline of what has to be done with each device? Now I'm going to be more you know what, when I refer to device 4 and 5, you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
What is device 4 and 5?
Well, to actually be clear, there are multiple devices named 4 and 5, but I believe the ones that you are referring to, because they come up quite a bit in the work that I did, device 4 is a desktop, the brand is called E-Machine, a device that was used by Joseph McStay regularly. Number 5 is also a desktop computer. That one is an HP Media Center that was also used in the McStay household, from my experience, primarily by Summer McStay.
Objection, that calls for speculation. Move to strike.
Actually, it doesn't. It's not reasonable.
Objection sustained at this point, the motion strikes and the chair is expected to disregard the last
When you're given the forensic images of let's say, these two devices, what do you do with that?
We have a number of tools that we use to assist us in finding the history of these computers, finding documents, finding emails, and such. It's important to understand that any electronic device, and especially computers, will have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of records and items on them. So we have to we use tools to help us identify specific areas that we're looking in. So we may be looking at the internet history. For one thing, we'll use a tool for that. We may be looking at documents or emails or something. We have tools to help us look for just what we're looking for and to search through them to get a better understanding.
Specifically talking about device 4 and 5, which would be the E-Machine and the HP Media Center, these two desktop devices that were in the Fallbrook home. That's what you understood the devices to come from, correct?
Correct.
On those two devices, was there an examination of those devices to determine what activity occurred on those devices on or around February 4th, 2010?
Yes, yes.
If we could just start with the E-Machine, and if you could describe how you would go about determining activity on or around that time period.
Sure. So to generally look at what activity has happened on a computer, first I have to start with a sense of what do people use computers for. They're going to be browsing the internet potentially, they're going to be opening files, saving files, potentially writing emails. These are the types of things that people will do, and there are different records, logs that are kept on the computer, which can help identify what those activities were. So for the E-Machine in particular, I looked for any and all of these things that I just mentioned. I did find internet browsing, activity. I found logs of what the computer was doing at the time. I found logs of files that were created and saved. There's probably more, but that's a good start, I would say.
And you sat in the audience when Detective Schrader testified for the prosecution, is that correct?
That's right.
Was there a difference of what he did and testified about and what you did in the examination of let's say, these two devices?
From his testimony, from what I read of his testimony and from what I saw of the reports that he was provided, yes, there was a difference.
And what was the difference?
Detective Schrader's testimony, as well as the reports, indicated to me that he had used a tool called NCASE to locate internet history, in particular on both of these two devices, to export that internet history for a specific time period, I believe, near the disappearance, near the murder, and to then give that history, I believe, to the investigating officers. What I did involved much more than just the internet history for that time period. I looked at internet history for a much broader period. I also looked at other items of evidence, emails, documents, etc., like I was saying, other forms of user activity.
So is it, when we're talking about February 4th, is there something that you can do to narrow your examination to that date range? If we're trying to determine what activities, let's say, Joseph and Summer may have been doing on the 4th. Is there a specific section of the computer you're going to go to look? Is there certain things in the computer examination that are important to answer those questions? How does the computer forensic analyst determine where to go to get this information in the computer?
So most of what I'm doing day in and day out is looking at what I would call log files, in various forms. And by a log, usually what you have is super basic. Usually it's a date and time that something happened, and then information as to what that was. So lines upon lines upon lines upon lines. At this time, this happened. This time, this happened, etc. So the tools that I use for these various internet history, files being opened, files being dealt with, basically all of the tools that I have are designed so that you can filter down to a specific area. So for example, looking at the 4th and the time period around there, I would run searches that say, just show me the time on the 4th, if that's what I were looking at the time.
So I'm thinking, I'm listening, and I don't know much about computers, but I'm thinking, can I just take this device and punch in February 4th and everything that they did on February 4th is going to come up, it shouldn't take too long and done? No?
I wish it were that easy. These devices, so any device, but especially a computer, is going to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of files on it. A file can have a little bit of data. It can have bajillions of pieces of data. It can be, small, or if you print it out, a single file could potentially be thousands of pages. So looking at these log files, looking for just a single date, if you've got everything in there, you're potentially still looking at hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of records in some cases for a single date. So it does take some additional work and know-how to be able to know how to zero in on things that really show you what the user was doing at the time, especially as opposed to system activity, because while you've got your computer up and running, Windows or your Mac or whatever may be doing a ton of things in the background that are not you. So there's this difference between user and system activity. So what I'm getting at is long-winded answer, I'm sorry. There's still a lot of data even for a single date.
Okay. So, starting with the e-machine on February 4th, were there any things that you were able to find on the e-machine that you felt were significant for computer use on February 4th?
Yes.
Let's take the date in chronological order. What was the first thing on February 4th that you believe was significant?
From my recollection, the first activity that I saw that caught my attention was in the afternoon on the 4th. I saw about an hour, I believe it's about an hour's worth of activity with a program called Google SketchUp.
And do we have an exhibit that is to represent that activity?
I prepared an exhibit, yes.
Is that our exhibit 08? So small.
B.
Is it B? Or E?
B. Well, there's the home page and then the
08B. Exhibit 1047. Exhibit. You already had that.
I do recognize this exhibit.
Is that the one that you were referring to?
No, no, it's not.
It was an E, right?
E is in 8. E is in Edward.
Okay. Now, are you referring to the Google SketchUp activity that was found in a certain program and at a certain time?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Was this activity, well, let me back up. Is this activity that you're referring to user activity as opposed to automated activity?
Yes, this is user activity.
Okay, so someone is sitting at the e-machine, which is a desktop, correct?
It's a desktop computer,
And
yes.
is doing this activity that you were referring to in Exhibit 8, correct?
That's right.
Was it found in a particular file?
So the activity was found in the Internet history, which is a set of logs, again, on the e-machine.
Is that history the same history that Detective Schrader testified about? He referred to Internet history on the e-machine?
That's the same history, yes.
And what specifically caught your eye about this activity?
If I could make another correction to what we're looking at for the exhibits, my apologies. So I have exhibits 8, B, and E here. The exhibit, I actually do, for the Google SketchUp activity, I should be seeing exhibits 8, B, and E. However, I believe that 8B is mislabeled,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I'll give you all the dates. How about that?
Please, that would be great.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
And when if you don't mind, when you're looking or identifying 8C now, just flip it over and give us the corrected number as well.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Thank you. staff.
Thank you. There's a lot of exhibits, so sorry. The exhibit that I'm trying to find is we got 8B and E.
This is 8B, correct?
That is 8E, and that is correct.
Okay. This is 8B.
No, that's not it. No. No. The exhibit does not appear to be in here.
Is this the...
Oh, wait. Sorry. Found it. Okay. It was combined in with another exhibit.
So I guess it has a new exhibit number then. 1047. So after it better be good. So let's see. And after that, wait. Okay. What are we looking at there?
Since apparently two are combined, may I see what 1047 now is?
While he's doing that, do you know what it is? You have to look at it to describe generally what it is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Those are records of internet history of a user actively going to and using Google SketchUp, which is a tool, but it's an online tool. Like many of Google's tools, you access it using your web browser. Well, that's a portion of it anyway.
Now, obviously, this exhibit does not encompass all that internet activity and browsing. Is that correct? For that time period. Let me ask you another. You've isolated a list. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And that's the exhibit that we're talking about. And why would that list be isolated? What is significant about it?
That was the portion of browsing history from, I believe, approximately 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. and it lists these Google SketchUp activities.
Okay. And now you mentioned the time frame, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. What was the timing important of those searches as well?
To me, the timing had significance. Yes.
Why?
My understanding is that from records that I've been provided or that we have discussed, is that on the afternoon of the 4th, Chase Merritt and Joseph McStay met for lunch.
Objection calls for hearsay, Knox Foundation, and assumes a lot of facts, not evidence.
There's already been testimony about but going to his conclusion as to why something is significant, that calls for speculation and conclusion. So the objection is sustained on that basis.
Did you rely on materials? Did you rely on certain materials to give you a factual context or
Yes.
Police reports, testimony, things of that nature.
Yes, a series of a large series of documents that were provided. My understanding is by the district attorney's office.
Okay. And so, this time, let's go back to the timing. You said that these searches were done between approximately 4 and 5 p.m., is that correct?
Yes, more specifically starting at 4:10 p.m.
And what are the searches, internet searches, about?
Yeah, objecting Ms. State's testimony.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last question.
Ms. State's the testimony and the contents of the exhibit.
Overruled.
Actually, I do have a bit of a correction there. It's they're not internet searches. This is internet activity as opposed to searching on Google for something or other.
Okay.
I mean, some of it does appear to have to do with searching to me, but
Internet activity.
sure.
It has a time frame between 4 and 5.
Approximately.
What is the activity that you found?
Primarily in this case, it's going to, this is a website called the Google 3D Warehouse, which is a part of sketchup.google.com. So it's related to Google SketchUp.
So, now this is, you indicated this is a desktop computer, correct?
That's right.
And through your review of the materials in this case, do you know where that desktop is located? In the fall forecast.
Objection calls for speculation and hearsay.
Did you review materials and photographs provided by San Diego Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I did.
Did you see photographs?
Yes, I did.
And where was located?
Same objection.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, what, Your Honor?
There's been testimony about the photographs and where the various items were shown.
They were in a room. The photographs that I saw showed them in a room. It didn't give me much context as to where they were.
Were they in separate rooms or in the same room?
One photograph in particular that I saw clearly identified them as being in the same room.
And the activity, is this activity that somebody is doing remotely, or is this activity, or can you tell whether it's activity of somebody actually sitting at a computer and punching keys?
All of my analysis indicates that this is a person sitting in front of the computer.
And so, what you do on, does this show this internet activity of what you do on Google SketchUp?
Could you clarify the question?
You said it's an internet activity at a site, Google SketchUp, is that right?
Yes.
What do you do, can you tell what is done on the site?
I can see visits to many different parts of the Google 3D warehouse, and by the titles of the web page, there are many titles to web pages which give an idea as to what the person was looking at in the 3D warehouse.
Can you identify some of those that you feel were significant? And now we're talking about still 4 to 5 p.m., is that correct?
4 to 5 p.m., that is correct. I don't place specific significance on any one of these, but I think as a whole they give an idea. I'll give a few examples of web page titles that I see. Let's see here. So at 4:10 p.m. at the very beginning of this, actually this is before the 3D warehouse begins, I see Line Tool. Simply, the website is called Line Tool. And this is part of, this is part of the program Google SketchUp. So this is, as opposed to on the web browser, this is part of the program piece of it. So Google SketchUp is a design tool. It can help you design things, mock-up drawings and such, so line tool probably has to do with that. Starting at 430, we have some examples. This is in the 3D warehouse. Big House by Andres, Eco House by Andres, Kitchen by Johnny Kiwi, Beach House for Dwell Design Competition by Johnny Kiwi, Awesome House by Josh86.
Okay, without just reading everything, is there an example, is there a photographic example of what some of this activity looks like?
I have a photographic exhibit of what the 3D warehouse looks like. If you go to the 3D warehouse website.
Is that exhibit 8E? Or sorry, 8E?
E is an echo, yes.
Okay, and on the back of that, if you could just put the number on that.
It looks like 105D.
Okay. Let's see if we can, I don't know if we can get that up on the computer. So this is what are we looking at here?
So this is the current homepage for SketchUp 3D Warehouse, showing images at the top. It says interior design, and then we have some other images below that.
Now, this activity that is occurring from 4 to 5, were you asked to, in the context of a meeting, did you know through your examination of the file that there was a meeting?
Objection, assumes facts on evidence, calls for hearsay. May we approach?
Objection sustained.
Why was the time of 4 to 5 important?
Objection, calls for hearsay and speculation.
Objection sustained. Calls for speculation.
Do you have an opinion as to, well, did you review phone records?
Yes, I did.
Did you review Joseph McStay's phone records?
Yes, I did.
So, I'm going to ask you to take a look at, you have 7D in front of you, which would be, and there would be an exhibit number on the back.
Yes, I have it.
And what is the exhibit on the back?
It looks to me like 1045.
Okay. And did you examine those records as part of your analysis?
Yes, I did.
And what are those records?
These are phone records of Joseph McStay.
And when you go in that, in those phone records to February 4th, in terms of that section,
Okay.
and we'll put it up on the screen. These have already been previously admitted as Exhibit 442. And if you could point out what the timing on these records and what entries are significant that you reviewed.
In the afternoon of February 4th, there are several calls showed as being made to Chase Merritt's phone number.
Okay. So we're going to try and blow it up a little bit. That's awesome. And you can always use a pointer if you'd like, if you feel it would be helpful. But are these the ones that are displayed now, are those the phone calls that you're describing?
Yes, they are.
What was significant about these phone calls?
a number of different things. Do you want me to start at the first one highlighted?
You use the pointer, yes.
Okay. So this first one highlighted 2-4 at 15:03, so that's 3 o'clock p.m. We see a phone call being made to the number 909-374-0102. That's Chase Merrick. And then we have a location that's listed for that as being Ontario. Shortly, so half an hour later at 3:32 p.m., another call to Chase Merritt. Location listed as Norco, California. And then 45 minutes later at 4:18 p.m., another call to Chase Merritt. Now this is in Fallbrook, so this appears to be the Fallbrook house. So to get back to the original question of the significance, this 4:18 p.m. call was made to Chase Merritt while the Google SketchUp activity is occurring.
And why was that significant?
That's significant to me because so we have a user who is working on Google SketchUp, who has, if I look at the locations that are listed here, it looks like the user is traveling toward the Fallbrook house.
Objection calls for speculation, lacks foundation.
Simply just taking the addresses or the location information listed here over the different times. We see Ontario, followed by Norco, followed by Fallbrook, and then working on design information. So SketchUp is a design program looking at house information, design information. So it has the appearance to me of Joseph working on a job.
Objection, that calls for speculation. Joseph, move to strike his answer.
The last question he asked is speculative.
Let me ask you, you listened, as the jury did, to an interview with Mr. Merritt that was done on February 17, 2010. Is that correct?
I would have to see the specifics. Unfortunately, I don't remember in that great detail.
Okay. Do you remember listening to an interview with Mr. Merritt and detectives about in 2010?
I've read transcripts of interviews. I'm not sure if I've listened to it.
Okay, sorry. Read transcripts. Have you done that?
I've read a great deal of transcripts. I'm not sure if I've read the specific one that you're referring to.
Okay.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not positive.
Well, did you read a transcript where Mr. Merritt is describing to you?
Objection, reading lacks foundation.
Call for his.
Did you, well, let me ask you this. Hypothetically, if Mr. Merritt and Mr. McStay met for lunch.
Objection, assumes facts on evidence, calls for speculation.
That is an evidence, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. Yes, okay. So the last objection is sustained as far as the speculation and conclusion.
We're going to leave that exhibit as internet activity on the E-machine from 4 to 5. Okay?
Okay.
Was there internet activity after 5 o'clock that you documented and in your opinion was significant?
Yes.
And what was that?
There was additional internet activity around the hour of 8 p.m.
And what specifically is it that the internet activity you're talking about that was significant in your opinion?
This is the period in which a user on the computer logged on to QuickBooks Online and did activity there.
And what, do you have an exhibit in front of you that, I think it's going to be one of, let's say, 3 or 4 exhibits. It'll begin with an 08.
Yes, I have several.
Okay, what's the first chronological exhibit that you want to talk about?
That'd be 8A.
Okay. And on the back of 8A, there's going to be a number.
So this is the first one that we were looking at that the two exhibits got put together. So this is also, I think this is 1047, I believe this reads.
Okay, 1047.
So it's actually also, the Google SketchUp activity was included in here as well, erroneously.
Okay, so don't separate it right now, but we'll just talk about the portion that you're referring to now. Okay?
Oh, actually, yes, okay.
Okay, so 1047, and what are we looking at in 1047?
We are looking at a file called check1.htm.
And when you sat through Detective Schrader's testimony, did he talk about this particular exhibit?
I believe he did.
Okay. And we can display that. Yeah, and if you can just describe where this document was found and on what computer.
Sure. So this was found again on the E-machine, the computer we've been talking about, within the temporary internet files. So this is a part of internet history on that computer.
Okay. And what is it that we're looking at here?
This appears to be a data input screen for entering information for a check.
Is it, did the user go to any particular site to retrieve this document or to use this document?
This is part of QuickBooks Online.
Okay. So, is there a time that this file, am I using the right terminology if I call this exhibit that we're looking at a file?
File, web page, either way, yes.
What time was this file accessed?
7:56 p.m. on February 4th.
And what was done with this file?
This is a data input form, so we know that the user visited this web page. We don't see here in this page. We don't see what was done because the parts of it are blank.
Okay. Is there another exhibit that takes us to the next step?
Yes, there's a second exhibit that indicates most likely what was done immediately at this time.
Objection calls for speculation.
What exhibit is that?
That is 8C.
And it's on the back of the HC, there'll be a number.
$1048.
And what is HC 1048?
This is another web page entitled print check setup. The file name is selectprint1.htm.
And is there a time that's associated with the retrieval of this file?
Again, February 4th, 7:59 p.m.
And we see that here in this first part of the exhibit. What are we looking at here where it says select print h.1.htm?
So again, this is a web page that was visited, and when the user went to this web page, it downloaded a copy of the web page to the computer. So we're looking at that copy.
And we see some times where that are noted on this particular document. It says file last modified, file last accessed. What time frame is, well, they're the same time, so I guess they're all the same.
That's right.
Okay, so this is 7:59, 42.
That's right.
And what is this document?
We have objection on it. This is cumulative to Detective Schrader's testimony in the exhibits that are already in evidence.
What is this document?
If you go to page 2 of this exhibit, so this is entitled Print Checks Setup. It is a web page, so it's entitled Print Checks, and it shows a payment listed type of check to Charles Merritt.
So somebody's sitting at the e-machine and typing in this data, correct?
That's
Objection calls for speculation.
Well, the previous document that you showed us didn't have any data in it, correct?
that's right.
Okay, so this is the next document, print check setup. Is there data in this document?
Yes, there is.
What data is this?
There's data input for a payment, a check to Charles Merritt for $4,000.
Okay. Now, would this be what the user is looking at when he's entering the data?
Objection, last opposition.
So this is the information that was presented to the user. This is exactly, or almost exactly, what it would have looked like on the screen.
Okay. There's a highlighted area above the date, order created. What is that?
It reads current balance, 89, so nearly $90,000.
Okay. And then, with that information there, the user then typed in $4,000, correct?
Probably not on this screen actually, but yes, a user would have entered in 4,000. Most likely on the last screen that we saw, which was the data input screen.
Okay. And the last screen, if we could just go to the last screen briefly, did the last screen also have a balance there, that indicated current balance?
It did.
Okay. I don't know if this is going to do that or not.
This is the last page.
No, it's the one before.
Wait, you mean this thing? Or the other?
The other one, sorry.
You want this?
That's what the data would have been inputted?
That's right. This is a data input screen.
Okay. And so this one actually has a balance also noted there, 93,724.
Correct.
And then 4,000 was been entered on this screen, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so now if we go to the next screen, if we subtract 4,000, then, let's see, my math isn't great, but it would take us to 89,724?
That's right.
Okay, so that's why you said it was entered on that other screen?
Right.
So, now with this data entered in this field, what, did the user do something with this?
Objection calls for speculation, also lacks foundation.
Did the user do something with after this entry?
There was additional activity after this. Yes.
And what was that?
A user attempted to print an alignment page to an Epson printer.
And what exhibit would denote that?
That's 8D.
And on the back of it, there's an exhibit number.
1049.
Is 1049 might have more than one page.
2 pages.
Okay. So up on the screen, are we looking at page 1?
Yes, we are.
And what are we looking at?
Okay, these are files on device 4, so that's the e-machine. These are called print spool files. So these are, thank you. Okay, so on the e-machine, device 4, these are spool files for the printer. So print spool, it's a temporary place where your computer puts things that you're trying to print. So you hit print, it creates these files, and if all goes well, whatever you print comes out of the printer, and then these disappear immediately afterward. If the document or whatever it is you're trying to print fails, if something goes wrong, these sit in the spool. I'm sure we've all had the experience of you try to print something, it fails, you print maybe several times over, and it's failing. Maybe you fix the printer later on, you get 8 copies of something coming out. That's because they're all queuing up in the print spool. So there are 2 things that were sent to this printer. This is an Epson printer. I know that there are 2 because you get a pair of files for each of these, and they're identified. The first one is these zeros, the second one ends in 1. So 2 things were sent to the printer.
Okay. Do we know what was sent to the printer? Or does this tell us what was sent to the printer?
I know it was sent to the printer. This doesn't tell us.
Okay,
Looking
how
at
did you find out what was sent to the printer?
I was able to open these spool files to see what the contents were.
So
What?
Open those spool files to see what was waiting to be printed.
That's right.
Okay. And is that the second page of this exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. So now the things that you showed before, and you said you saw or you listened to Detective Schrader's testimony on this subject. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the prosecutors asked him if it was a check that was sent to the printer.
Objection, Ms. State's testimony.
What did you hear in that regard?
Detective Schrader said that he found these print spool files, but he was unable to open them. He said that they were garbled.
And you were able to open them?
Yes, I was.
And page 2, we were page 2. And what are we looking at here?
This is a generic alignment page for QuickBooks Online.
Objection, foundation.
It has the name of Ron Sage. Is that something that, where did that come from?
As I was saying, it's generic. This is not specific information. This is an alignment page, meaning that you use this very generic document to set up your printer. So if you're going to print checks out of QuickBooks Online, you have these checks that you buy from your bank or QuickBooks or whatever, and you put them in your printer, and you need everything to come out in the right place. You need the amount to come where it's supposed to, the address and recipient to come where it's supposed to. You don't want the amount coming in the signature line or something like that. You use an alignment page to set up QuickBooks to print correctly.
You said 2 things were sent to the printer.
That's right.
Okay. Was this one thing?
Both the 2 items were identical. They were both this alignment page.
So the user on the e-machine at 8 o'clock approximately sent an alignment page twice to the printer.
That's right.
I thought we saw an entry of 4,000 and it said Charles Garrett on the previous exhibit.
Yes, we did.
Was that data ever sent to the printer to be printed?
My opinion is that was not sent to the printer.
So just an alignment page.
Was sent to the printer. Correct.
Now, in connection with this activity, Well, is this all it is on this page, or is there more on the bottom? You know?
I mean, we're not showing the entire page here, but it's generic alignment. There's nothing significant about the data.
And you said this was about 8 or after 8, somewhere around that time?
8:02 p.m.
Now, in connection with this, did you review Joseph's cell phone records?
Yes, I did.
And could you, that was R7B, is that correct?
Yes.
And what's is that 1045?
Yes, it is.
Was there a call after this activity from Joseph to Chase?
There was.
What time?
February 4th, 8:28 p.m.
Is there anything else about this activity that you felt was significant? The alignment page being sent to the printer and so forth.
I believe we've covered it all.
In terms of QuickBooks, were you able to review some of the QuickBook documents and QuickBook activity as it pertains to the computers?
Yes, I was.
Did you know that if there was 1 or 2 QuickBook accounts?
There are two that I'm aware of.
Max Foundation is QuickBooks.
I'm aware of 2 QuickBooks accounts used by Joseph.
Do you know or have an opinion as to this activity that you just described at 8 o'clock? Was it coming from which QuickBooks account?
That's the one called the custom account.
Now, based on your review of checks being generated for the custom account, how many times had checks been generated on February 4th at 8 o'clock? How many times had checks been generated prior to that time in the custom account?
Objection made.
Ever before?
I'll ask it again. In the whole history of the world, have there ever been a check, or how many checks have been issued from the customs account on this issue?
There were only a few checks logged as issued from the QuickBooks, from the custom account before this.
Objection not responsive.
Do you, in your opinion, are alignment pages used when you're using a new account to print checks?
Objection calls for speculation.
Yes, I definitely have experienced that with programs like QuickBooks. If you've got a new setup, you need to test things out to make sure that they print correctly. So if this is indeed new for this account, which it seems that it was, printing an alignment page does seem natural.
Was the alignment page actually printed?
Are you asking if the paper actually came out of the printer?
Yeah.
The alignment, no, nothing came out of the printer. The fact that these spool files remain means that it did not successfully print.
Hypothetically, if you're aware, as a part of the case analysis, that the prosecution's theory.
Objection, relevance and argumentative.
You heard testimony, you sat in testimony of the prosecution's expert saying that Chase Merritt's truck drove out of the driveway.
Objection, relevance Ms. State's testimony.
Objection sustained is calling for speculation and conclusion and beyond the scope of the witness's expertise.
Let's go to February 8th. Is that the next chronological order of computer activity that you denoted?
Yes, it is.
And what are we talking about in terms of time frames and activity on February 8th that you felt was significant?
There's activity on both of the computers that we've discussed so far, the eMachine desktop and the HP Media Center desktop, from approximately 2 in the morning until approximately 4 in the morning.
And you heard Detective Schrader talk about that activity, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
So, is it fair to say that on both machines, the eMachine and the HP Media Center, there was some activity?
Yes.
Was there more activity on the eMachine or more activity on the HP Media Center?
There was more activity on the eMachine.
And what time was the activity between what time and what time on the eMachine?
I have an exhibit that would help, but approximately the eMachine, there was some activity about 2:05 to 2:07, 2:08 a.m., and then more activity near 4 a.m.
Are we talking about 06 A and B?
Yes.
Okay, so should I do 06 A first?
6B is earlier.
And what's on the back of 6B?
One 1041.
So on exhibit 1041, which is 6B, what are we looking at? What are we talking about here?
There were Google searches that were run at this time period, and in particular, what I am looking at for this exhibit is a screenshot of the Google toolbar installed into Internet Explorer, the browser, which shows very clearly the history of searches that were run on this computer, the eMachine.
Now, you heard Detective Schrader testify as to this activity, is that correct?
Yes.
And what did as you remember, Detective Schrader said about this activity?
Detective Schrader the testimony, as I recall, were that approximately 6 Google searches were run at this time was one piece of the testimony, and there was a piece of testimony that indicated that these searches would have, I believe I'm quoting correctly, pushed down previous history on the computer.
And what was the push down? What did Detective Schrader say about pushing this down, or why it was pushed down?
Actually, I believe what I've conveyed is everything that I recall him saying on that.
And the individual, did the user at this time after 2 in the morning on February 8th, what exactly did the user do at that time?
The user ran 6 of these searches. So if you look at the very top of the list here, you'll see. So this list is in chronological order. So the items at the top are the ones that have been run most recently, and going further down, you're going farther back in history as to what the user has run. These, starting with QuickBooks Online right here and going up, those are the 6 searches that were run in the wee hours of the morning on February 8th. QuickBooks Online, followed by Microsoft Office templates, followed by Dinosaur Train, followed by Stackstone, followed by an address, Brookhurst, and then finally Capital One.
And did the user, how did the user do the search for QuickBooks Online? Did they click on a previous entry in the history?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
My opinion is that the user opened Internet Explorer and used most likely this dropdown to click on that search, which would have then rerun the search. Because a key point that I haven't covered yet is that every single one of these 6 searches had been run in the past. These 6 searches were already run in the past. They were already in the Google toolbar.
Are we able to see that in this exhibit?
In this screen, we cannot easily see this for all of them. You can see one example here. You can see a couple of varieties of the Brookhurst address, but you can see that there's an instance where it's misspelled there. But you're not, in this screenshot, you're not going to see all of those 6 entries because Google, in an effort to make things a little bit easier, it doesn't show you the duplicates. So if you've run a search multiple times, it's going to show you the most recent one, not every single time you've done it. However, the past searches are recorded, just not on the screen.
Okay. And where are they recorded?
They are recorded. If you go to page 2 of this, I believe. Let's see. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so this is a file on the eMachine with a very strange file name, but it's called Google2eweb.w. That is a text file that the Google toolbar uses to record these searches.
And if we go to the next page, are we going to, can you direct us to some of the previous searches that were done for those same 6 searches?
Sure.
Okay.
Give me one moment. So actually, this exhibit contains a lot of pages because there are hundreds of searches in this list. But if you go to the very end of this list, probably about 20 pages deep or something along those lines, the very, very end of this list is where you'll see the most recently run searches, and you'll find those 6. A little farther. A little farther, just you'll see it. There we go. Okay. So starting so these are the 6 searches that were run February 8th. You'll notice that there's 2 QuickBooks Online searches. The second one is where things started on February 8th. The one right before there, QuickBooks Online, there was a search for QuickBooks Online on the 4th. So we know right away that that was already in there. That was run in the past. But if you scroll up a little bit, you'll see 4 entries higher than that, Dinosaur Train. 4 entries higher than that, Microsoft Office Templates, which match up with these. Above that, we have Stackstone. Above that, we have Capital One. And if you go up just a little bit higher, there's the Brookhurst address. So this shows very clearly that each of these 6 searches had been run in the past.
Now, the idea of pushing things down from the, I guess, in the internet history, when we look at that toolbar, we do that drop-down menu, I guess we have to go back to the previous page, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
So on this, is there something that caught your eye regarding the testimony of Detective Schrader in pushing these down?
Well, we're talking about very little internet history, just 6 Google searches. So if the idea is that we're saying push down, the historical items would not have been pushed very far in the list. So out of a list of hundreds, thousands of internet history items, we're talking about 6.
If I was trying to hide this activity, would it be easier for me to just delete the history?
Objection calls for speculation.
Yes, deleting the history would be more effective.
If I wanted to hide my QuickBooks Online activity. Do I need to erase that entry if I wanted to?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Could you restate?
QuickBooks Online entry here. Could I erase that?
If you were knowledgeable trying to erase your history, you could erase your history. There would have to be another step specifically to erase it from the Google toolbar in this case, but yes.
Okay. But this QuickBooks Online, at least by clicking on it, actually made it visible. Is that correct?
That's right. So on the 8th, the very first search that was run was QuickBooks Online. So that effectively ran the search again, and brought it at that moment to the forefront of the history.
And we saw QuickBooks Online before somewhere down in the list, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the February 4th activity is what I was referring to.
Okay. So by clicking on QuickBooks Online, I brought it right back up to the top. Is that right?
That's right.
So that's not trying to hide QuickBooks Online, in your opinion, would it? Is it?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
How many times was QuickBooks Online, well, I start there. Was anything done significantly when the user clicked on QuickBooks Online?
Are you talking about February 8th?
We're talking about, yes, February 8th. This is when this,
So I'll just tell you exactly what happened as opposed to trying to say if it's significant. The user ran a Google search for QuickBooks Online, and that's it.
did the user type out QuickBooks Online, or did the user press on the previous QuickBooks Online?
I believe, looking at this history, that the user clicked on the drop-down and clicked QuickBooks Online.
Did the site QuickBooks Online get accessed?
No. QuickBooks Online was not accessed.
So the only thing that was done, when it's clicked on, you'll get a series of, I guess, results.
Google search results.
And none of those results were clicked on to go to the site. Is that correct?
That's right.
And the
It's
whole...
time to take our evening recess.
Sure.
We'll go ahead and take our evening recess this time until 9:30 tomorrow morning. Before we do, there were a couple of inquiries from jurors. Could we give you information about days off or partial days? There is no other information. As of right now, we do not have any more days off. We do not have any more half days. We're working full time again. Let's see how long that lasts. And then the other question is, what is quote 362 where an objection is sustained? That's an evidence code section that basically deals with relevancy and importance of the evidence, and if the objection is sustained, that's me saying it's not particularly relevant and important, and we're not going to spend any time on it. Okay? And so with that, we will be in recess till 9:30 tomorrow morning. Remind the admonition speeches are given to you, not to warn or discuss any things about the case, not to discuss the case or allow anyone to discuss the case with you or in your presence. Again, that means not discussing anything about the case. Any witnesses, opinions of both parties or attorneys, and we'll see everyone back tomorrow morning.